All right, Hudson, welcome to the show. Would you like to start us off with your opening statement?
So yes, the I would like to start us off first. My belief is that the universe is made up of physical constants that can be measured.
All right, and I would take the negative that the universe consists of some non-physical materials, or as you would say, constants. That's probably the best term to use in this scenario.
So the reason I say that it's completely made up of physical constants, let's take the one that we know most on, especially on Earth, gravity. It's present everywhere within the galaxy. Whether it differs based on masses, it differs based on um, what forces are interacting on it, but overall gravity is a constant that is always there and it can be measured. We even have methods for it here on Earth.
Is gravity physical, though?
Yeah, I would say it is. We can see its physical properties everywhere. When you jump up, you're pushed right back down towards the center of a larger mass.
Just because you can see its effects on something doesn't necessarily mean the thing of causing those effects is what the effects are. So let's start
Is
off by
is
defining
air a
physical.
physical thing?
Air physical,
Is air
yeah,
a physical thing?
because it can be reduced to
Then
physical matter, but what can gravity be reduced to?
the effects of itself.
That's where I guess
Something
the
something
disagreement is. We
cannot,
can't reduce
yeah.
something to the its effects. But let's define physical. Well, how would you define it?
Well, I would define physical as being its effects being able to be measured. You can see how it affects things, you can see how it affects yourself. Yes, it can be broken down. Sometimes it can't be broken down into basic components. But overall, it's just based on how its relation with other things.
Can you give me a physical thing that cannot be broken down into components?
Well, like I said, gravity already. And then
That's why I
I
would
said, is
propose.
air a physical thing? And then
Yeah, it can be
air,
reduced to
I said,
molecules.
is a physical thing, into oxygen, and then it's further can be broken down into atoms and subatomic particles and
Yeah.
such. But like I said in my definition of what I believe is physical, is we can measure its effects.
Hmm.
I had brought up the example of being here on Earth. When you jump up, you're immediately pulled back down at a force of 9.8 meters per second squared, give or take a couple decimals. But
All right.
overall, it's constant on Earth. Yes, it can be different everywhere else, but on Earth, that is the physical constant of it.
So the concept of, say, mathematics, what are the effects that this idea of math have? And it cannot be reduced to mere physical matter. My definition of physical would be has to be able to be reduced to some physical component. Well, I guess that's kind of circular. It has to be reduced to components that can be measured on their own, not just their effects. They have to be measured on their own, not by their effects.
Well, if you
What do you
say
think
it
that's a
like
better
that, then
definition?
I would disagree because A, how would we know that thing can be broken down if the effects of it were never present? The effects drive the discovery of properties.
All right.
So, so when Isaac Newton, I'm using gravity a lot as an example,
Yeah,
but it's a
that's fine.
key example for it. When Isaac Newton was discovering gravity, quote unquote, it's always existed, but we just never put a term to it. He had to create three universal laws. Those laws were never made before, and we could not know about them unless we knew the effects of gravity already.
All right. So, what effects does mathematics have on the what I would call the physical realm?
Well, mathematics drives everything that we do. Well, the
But
fan
what
that
does
I'm
it
using
directly
currently,
affect? Like gravity directly makes things fall to their center,
it
right? In
holds
the case of the
everything.
universe, what does
Yeah,
mathematics directly affect, not just contribute to, and we base things on what does it itself
directly affect.
affect? What?
Well, it's all our basic counting systems.
Yeah, but
It's
what's it
all
affecting? It's in and of itself. Like
that
gravity
is that
brings
is what
things
it's
towards the
affecting.
center. What?
That is what it's affecting. It is affecting every single thing known to man, just like gravity affects every single thing known to man. When
You're
we say
using two
what
different
it's
kind of
affecting,
effects. You're
but
using
yes, they're
it's
both
yeah.
effects.
So
They're both effects.
what kind of effects do you deem necessary? Because there are many kind of effects that a thing or a system can have on another thing.
Well, that's how everything works. Something has an effect on another, and then something else can have effect on that same thing, and that's how they both like cooperate together in order to create that thing that they're both affecting.
Can can you prove consciousness is physical based on measurable things, not just the effects it holds, but because it's still argued that consciousness is not physical, clearly your definition cannot be the correct definition. Because if it were, then everything would be physical, but that's not the accepted definition. If we look at the actual definition, one sec, let me look it up real quick.
Mhm. You're good. I have a small rebuttal to that claim.
Go ahead.
When we say that we can't directly measure the effects of consciousness or if consciousness is physical in itself, I want to ask you, do you hear a voice in your head when you're just thinking to yourself?
I would say
Do
so,
you
yes.
see, are you able to picture something in your mind?
To some extent, yes.
Okay. That is the
I
effect
have
it's
the
having on yourself.
definition up. There's two that could be in relation to this topic. So it describes anything that has mass and takes up space in the real phenomenal world. This includes physical assets like buildings or physical inventory in a store. And in relation to physics, it refers to the natural sciences or the fundamental properties of matter and energy. So physical laws of motion and thermodynamics. Those are
Gravity as well.
all right. I'll give you that. That's a natural science. But how are thoughts? It has to be in this definition. It has to be able to be reduced to its fundamental properties. What properties can you reduce consciousness to?
Well, as far as we know currently with what modern science has been able to prove, as of right now, we don't know. And the beauty of science is that as we learn more about the human psyche and as we learn more about why we work the way we work, we will be able to figure out what makes consciousness tick, what makes it function, and what it can be broken down into in order to simulate that. And we figure that out by using a lot of processes that were brought about by the human mind and the human conscious itself. So, in turn, the effects of the human conscious can be measured in humanity's successes.
All right. So, but by remember the true definition was
Mhm.
somewhat different than both of ours, but it's being able to be reduced to its fundamental properties. That's the. Would you agree that's the kind of definition we need for this debate? Because that's the accepted scientific consensus. So I think that would be the best
Yes,
to use
but
for this debate.
there is also, popular resistance to that, which does go along with things don't always have to be physical. There
So there
can be
are
physical
non-physical
constants that are
things.
always measurable.
So there are non-physical
Not
things.
e- when I say non-physical, I mean we can't directly see them. We can
All
only
right.
see what its effects are, which, as I stated, means we can measure it. We can know it's there because of its effects.
Sure. Sorry. Explain that a little further.
Okay, so when I say we know something is there, we know that because of how it's acting around acting around matter around it.
Hmm.
Let's take, for example, antimatter.
All right. I'm not
It's
familiar, but
incredibly, yeah, you don't really have to be for this
all
example,
right.
but antimatter in itself, obviously by the name, it's against matter or
Hmm.
the opposite of.
Yeah.
Um, we would never have known it was there had small, very, very small particles of it been interacting with other bits of matter.
All right.
And now we know that, and we have been able to break it down into its fundamental components because we saw the effects of it.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's physical. That means we can know it's there. That's the fundamental difference. Like
And
my
it
argument
can't
would be
it can't be
emotions
there
aren't
unless
physical, but
it's
we know they're there because we can measure them based on our feelings and we create scales for them. So yes, they're there, but they're not physical. They can't be reduced to their fundamental components.
the fundamental components can be reduced to pheromones and chemicals within the human body.
Is that proven? In the case of consciousness,
Yes, that is
it's
proven.
still sci it's there's
Let's
no
think of
scientific consensus. That's
yes,
because we
as
don't
of
know if it
yet.
can be reduced. So from our current scientific understanding, which we have to base everything off of, when you say from our perspective right now in this moment, there are some non-physical things.
Based off the information we currently have, yes. But as in our truth is objective or subjective
Yeah,
debate we had, based on the current knowledge we have, we may be completely wrong.
I
So it's
agree.
not unfair to assume that maybe we will find something in the future. So to
It's not unfair,
directly
but it's
label it as
speculation, and I don't think we should make
it's an
claims based on
educated guess,
speculation,
speculation and an educated guess are two completely different things.
right?
What
What's the
I'm
difference?
making is a guess. Oh, well, a speculation is based on little to no evidence. You just throw a random guess out there.
So what's your evidence right
Speculation is
now
just
that there is
my evidence
that?
right now is that based along the current human progress that we have, especially when studying the brain and how it works, we
Mhm,
are slowly uncovering more and more things related to consciousness. I believe there was a 2023 study done by, I don't exactly remember which university. It was an Ivy League college
mhm,
um, that did a study on different thoughts and how they link to emotions and how they linked to the actual properties of people.
mhm.
Um, and that would be my evidence there is that we are slowly learning more and more about the human psyche and how it functions. That's also how we've begun to treat PTSD in veterans.
Mhm.
In World War One, we didn't even have a PTSD. We had what was called shell shock.
Yeah,
World War Two, I forget what they labeled it, but it was essentially the same thing. Troops would become delirious and they would refuse to fight.
yeah.
So, and now, as we've learned more about how trauma affects the brain, because of the way the human psyche is affected by trauma, we have now come to label it as PTSD.
Mhm,
So we have been able to measure its effects. We have been
mhm.
able to guess. It's not complete with certainty,
Yeah.
but it's better than not knowing anything at all
Uh-huh.
about to the extent that someone is hurt.
So you brought up the
So
psyche, and we're acting as if that's physical. What fundamental properties can be reduced from the psyche?
memories,
But like yeah,
trauma, emotions,
but fundamental components, like components would have to consist. You
neurons of the
like,
brain,
all right,
neurons that
that'd be fair.
synapses that fired when directly related to the trauma center, to the emotions, to the memory,
Hmm.
um, basically all those components of the brain and how they function to the rest of the body. But the what I'm trying to hint at there is that it when saying I have an educated guess, that's based on what we currently know, what's possible to be discovered, what's possible not to be discovered. So,
Hmm.
yes, in 20 years, 30 years down the line, I could be completely wrong. And I just threw a shot in the dark and I was completely wrong and misled by the
And so
information I
could I, yeah.
currently have. Yeah. So, what I'm saying is, as of right now, based on the information we have, we cannot definitively say everything is a physical constant, everything is a mix, there are non physical constants, or something along those lines. But a majority of the things that we know now, if not close to all,
Hmm.
are physical constants.
Hmm.
Every human experiences happiness, every human experiences sadness, every human experiences gravity,
Yeah.
every human has memories, unless you have dementia, and that's a whole separate thing,
Yeah.
in
Well,
which,
yeah.
yeah.
That was a good debate.